So, there's a quote I've said many times, and it goes like this. A lot of people aren't actually in love, they're experiencing an unhealthy attachment. Now, we're going to dive into that, but we're not going to start off with that. I just want to start off with the quote, but we'll address that specific point later. But the purpose of this video is to discuss or highlight the issue of knowing if a relationship can last or not. All right. Now, whether you are in one right now or you'll eventually be in one, it's important to understand these important questions that need to be asked to properly evaluate if this is a sustainable situation. Can this really succeed for the long run? Because the unfortunate problem with a lot of people is that they're evaluating in the moment, right? They're trying to determine based on how they feel right now if this is something good and they can move forward with this individual, but they're not thinking long term. And so I want to add some perspective to that. So before I get into this, deep into this, I want to say, listen, finding the right person to be with is a worthwhile journey. But once you find that person, the work doesn't stop there. We still have to make sure we're nurturing the relationship, we're pouring into it, we're creating ways to improve communication, strengthen that bond, and make meaningful connection a daily habit. And with so many amazing tools out there right now, I'm very happy to be partnering up with the Paired app. The Paired app, whose main goal is to help couples reach goals together and build a thriving relationship in a private and safe space. We all have busy schedules, making it difficult to maintain healthy communication habits. But the Paired app makes it easy to dedicate time each day to connect and grow with quick, daily conversations in the form of fun quizzes and questions designed by experts to help you discover your strengths and areas of growth as a couple. The Paired app is the ultimate relationship companion designed to foster communication, trust, and help strengthen your bond. I encourage you to give it a try and deepen the connection with your partner by clicking the link in my bio to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off Paired Premium. I'm sure you and your partner are going to love it. All right. So here's a few questions to ask yourself to understand if your relationship will fail or not. And the first thing I want you to ask yourself is, can you be yourself with this person? So a lot of people are getting caught up in trying to behave in certain ways that will get them a person or the specific person that they want, right? There's tons of advice online on the internet telling you to do this, do that. Of course, I have a channel that gives advice. But I always try to make sure I'm telling you, like, yes, these are things that can work in certain ways, but you still have to stay true to who you are. Unfortunately, a lot of people have not done that. They've engaged in these different tactics. And sometimes, yes, you as a woman, you get this person, you get this man, right? But I can't tell you how many women got that man, even married the man, or they got married with the guy. And then years later, they wake up one day, look at themselves in the mirror like, who the hell am I? And who is this man I got myself caught up with? Like, they don't even recognize themselves anymore because they got lost in I have to use the word, the chase or the desire to receive. And this is hitting my spirit, so I have to say this. It's not even that a lot of women are getting caught up in the desire for that specific man. They're getting caught up in their desire for marriage. They're getting caught up in their desire to have a family. They're getting caught up in their desire to fit into this image that they created for themselves, that they wanted, that they thought they would have at a certain age or whatever the case may be. And in their pursuit of that, right, they can lose sight of who they're trying to do it with and the lengths they're going to get it, right? But then the problem is, if you are changing who you are, that's not sustainable. Because I always say your true self is going to come out at some point. And so, again, I've sat down with tons of different couples, singles, you name it, everybody, and married couples. And there's so many scenarios where the person, again, let's just use the woman, right? Because that's the audience I'm speaking to right now. The woman eventually, she can't keep up with this act, supposedly, that she's been portraying. And now she starts to get or wanting to go back to being her, right? Trying to accept who she is, if she even knows it at that point. And that then starts to create conflict. So it's either she's in constant conflict because she has to suppress herself, right? Or it's conflict because now that her true self is coming out, the husband, the partner, that's not what he signed up for. Now, some people are fortunate, and when that true self comes out, their partner is still riding with it and it's not causing a problem, because it also depends on how far the woman deviated from her true self to begin with, right? Because if it was a little slight differences, all right, cool. But when there are big differences, that can create a big shift when you're trying to get back to being you. And so that creates fights and arguments. But also, what has to be considered is that in trying to make that shift back, there's not really an honest conversation of what the hell happened. Like, so basically the husband will come talk to me like, I don't know what's going on with her. She's been acting different. She's like this new woman. And in reality, no, this is who she always was. But either she didn't feel like she was allowed to be, or she didn't allow herself to be, combination of the two, whatever. But this is her. But to that man, this is like brand new, confusing, and he doesn't understand it. And if they would simply have, in some situations, in simply having a conversation, it might be able to be rectified, an honest conversation. And when I say honest conversation, meaning, yeah, you know what? This was always a part of me that I wanted, or I wanted to embrace, but for whatever the reasons, and you would explain that, I didn't, and now I find myself trying to get back to that. And seeing if that can then be worked on together, right? But the point I'm trying to make overall here is that if you cannot be yourself with this man, because sometimes that's done off of your own attempts to try to get him. And for some of you, it's based off of you do have a partner who rejects the real you, who is judgmental towards the real you, who speaks negatively on the real you. And rather than simply walk away, you've tried to make things work. But when we're asking the question, can this relationship last? No, it cannot. Not happily. And I have to say that real quick too. Like, we have to understand there's a lot of relationships that lasted. Longevity does not equal success. Okay? My goal is not to help you remain in a relationship. My goal is to help you experience a happy, healthy relationship. The one that's best for you and that partner, okay? And that one is the one I want to last forever. But just being in one, just to be in one and saying, oh, we were together for all these years, what is it worth if it was a miserable household and created other issues? Not just for you, but possibly for kids. We won't go down that rabbit hole right now, but bottom line is you have to ask yourself, can I be myself with this man? If you cannot, it has to be addressed. If it cannot be corrected, that relationship is not going to make it. So another great question to ask when wondering if a relationship will fail or not is, are you able to discuss issues in a healthy manner? All right. So I cannot tell you how many couples that I have come across who, despite being together for years, don't know how to have healthy discussions about issues. And one may assume, well, if they're not able to discuss these things, how do they even make it that far? Well, I'll give you a simple answer. People sweep things under the rug all the time. People allow the distractions of life to get in the way and to take their mind off of the problems and just go along with it, right? And then there's other various reasons, like we mentioned in the beginning of the video, the unhealthy attachment, which we'll discuss deeper at the end. But bottom line is, a lack of healthy communication has not stopped a lot of relationships initially, but you're not gonna last like that much longer. And again, I have to say, you're not gonna last in a healthy and happy way. Because again, are there people who last in toxic relationships with these issues still outstanding? Absolutely. Happens all the time. But if you examine what's going on behind closed doors, it's a mess. It's a mess. And so being able to discuss issues is extremely important to being able to have success in any relationship. And it's not just because I think a lot of times people are only focusing on when I want to talk, right? But it's not just when you want to talk, it's also when he wants to talk. It's when both of you want to talk. It's creating an environment that allows both of you to fully express yourselves without the fear of backlash. Now, when I say without the fear of backlash, let me help you understand something. A lot of both men and women are shutting down in their relationships because they feel like whenever they try to talk to their partner, they get defensive, they get negative, or they get offended in a way. They make it this whole other issue and then the original issue never gets properly corrected, right? And so for a lot of people, and let's just in this example say, let's say the man, for a lot of men, right? If he feels like him being honest with you is going to lead to you having an attitude, um, withholding intimacy, various things, then it's like, all right, why am I even going to open my mouth and say anything? And so that then lays down the unhealthy foundation that destroys communication in the relationship. So we have to create a safe space. And, I've mentioned this in other videos where I think a great thing for all couples to have is what I call the relationship checkup, right? Where they find time, maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, whatever, or maybe it's just even randomly if they say, okay, let's schedule a relationship checkup, and they get to sit down and lay everything out, right? And really properly address things, because that's the other problem that I've seen in a lot of couples is that because of a lack of healthy communication and issues not being properly resolved, then what happens is issues start to pile up. Okay, so there's things that happened 10 years ago in some couples situations that because it was never resolved, when we get to this year and something happens and it blows up in everybody's face, it's really not just about the current issue. It's a compounding of all the other issues that's just been lingering, plus this, and this is like, as they say, the straw that broke the camel's back, and now everything blows up. But had we been resolving things as we went along so that the new issue would be an isolated situation, we could address it on its own merits and have nothing to do with anything in the past, it would make issues so much easier to work through. Okay? So that's why it's important to create a system or a structure that allows you and the partner to consistently address things and not hold things in. Because there's another quote I love saying, you don't heal by suppressing, you heal by releasing. When you are not releasing things, you're only piling up negative energy that's going to make things a lot worse. So being able to, you got to ask, can you guys talk through things in a healthy manner? And let me say this before I move on to the next point. Remember, communication doesn't have to just be verbal. Now, I do not want some of y'all to have deep discussions of issues via text either, okay? Because I see that happen too much and I do not like it. I'm not saying it can never work out that way, but stick to either verbal or letters. Even an email, because to me, email is just an electronic letter. To me, that's more acceptable. The reason why I'm going to encourage you to do letter versus a text, right, is because in texting, for a lot of people, whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, we're wired to condense our messages in text. We're not usually writing out as fully as we would if we were either talking or writing via a letter, all right? That leaves very important details sometimes not mentioned. That leaves, it doesn't get properly discussed. It's just not the most effective mode of communication. Text should be left for quick, simple messages. Good morning, how you doing? I miss you. What are you wearing right now? If that's your thing, all right, whatever. But keep it simple. Don't get into the deep stuff via text. But yes, being able to discuss things in a healthy manner is another important question to ask. All right, so let's keep this going. And another question that must be asked when we're wondering if a relationship will fail or not is, do we want the same things? Or even more importantly, are we on the same page? Okay. So a lot of relationships fail due to misunderstandings, due to two people who are trying to move in different directions and are not walking together. And again, initially, it may not be as obvious of a problem, but over time, it starts to take a toll on the relationship. You can't have two people moving in a different direction thinking they're going to build something amazing together and last a lifetime together. And so it's important that you address all the very different areas where there needs to be alignment. Okay. Now, the reason why I said not just wanting the same things, but being on the same page, because I think sometimes we may have some slight variances in our desires, but some of them are not going to be deal breakers for the relationship, right? Like maybe they're we can compromise on some things. And that's why it's more important that we're on the same page. Meaning, even if we had some differences, we were able to discuss them, we were able to find compromises that work for both parties. And now we are moving together in alignment with an understanding of what we're doing here. And I think sometimes people just think about that in the dating process while getting to, let's say, marriage, right? But no, you got to do it whether you're dating, whether you're married. You have to make sure we are trying to move towards the same things. So whether that be the level of relationship we want to take this to. So because listen, for some people, especially in today's world, you have some people who don't believe in getting married. You got to know that, especially if you want to get married. You got to understand, okay, when it comes to kids, if you got someone who's like, listen, I'm just trying to have one and that's it, or I'm not even trying to have any, and you're someone who wants to have four or five, that's a problem. That needs to be discussed. Um, Things like how we want to live, where we see ourselves living, and of course, life throws different things at us that we can't always plan for. But we should have some kind of foundational understanding of what we desire. Even how we want to manage our lives, manage our money. Money management, or the issue of money, has destroyed so many relationships. And again, I think people don't discuss it enough and have a good enough understanding of where their partner stands on those types of topics. Now, I feel the need to mention this. There's a lot of people who talk about checking, you need to know your partner's credit, right? Well, hell, there's people who want to check your credit while they're in the dating phase, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at the credit score. But here's the thing. If we're going to use the credit score, we have to understand the score itself does not give a full picture. So I just felt the need I had to mention this in this video. So I'm just going to give a quick example. I knew somebody one time, they had a 700 and something credit score, but they only had one account on their entire credit. And it was like some like silly thing. It wasn't even anything real. That doesn't really tell you how good this person is at money management, right? On the flip side, I've seen people who had, let's say, a 5 something, right? But what was bringing it down was like they had either hospital bills, or I knew situations where when they was like 17 or something, their parents put things under their name. So it's like if you just looked at their score, you might say, "Oh, no, they're horrible with their money. They can't be trusted with money." But it's like, no, wait a minute. Look at the actual breakdown to see what's really going on. So I know a lot of people aren't actually evaluating people's credit reports. I'm just throwing it out there. If credit is a thing for you, and I do think it's something that needs to be discussed and understood, you got to remember the full picture, not just the snapshot of the score. All right. But getting back to the point at hand, whatever it is, spiritual beliefs, how we would want to raise kids, these are other things that need to be discussed, because also, again, these when we are not on the same page in these various different areas, that one thing can start the cycle of the end of the relationship. Okay. And too many people sometimes wait until the issue arises before it's actually properly addressed. And by that point, you take the risk of resentment, arguments, miscommunication, all these other issues. So address it, know it, always make sure you and your partner are on the same page, and understand that because we can evolve as people, even though I think a lot of times it's not just evolving, but again, going back to how some people suppress their true selves and then it comes out, people can start to have different perceptions and desires as relationship goes along. And that's why it's important to not just assume, oh, we've talked about it once, so we're good. No, throughout the process of being together, let's make sure we still are on the same page. We're good. We're still moving in the same direction. And if there's a disconnect somewhere, let's address it. All right. So, a couple more to go. And another big question when wondering if the relationship will fail or not is, are you too in tune sexually? Now, listen, I know if you are a believer, then your response right now might be, we're not supposed to be doing that anyway. All right. And that's fine. Whether you're actually physically engaging in it or not, and this is not a video to discuss the rights and wrongs, because again, the reality is that no matter what the rule's supposed to be, people are engaging in sex before marriage. Now, whether you are or are not, even if you are waiting till, you still have to see if you two are in tune sexually. So let me say real quick, for those who are waiting, there still has to be discussions, and not just discussions. Like, I think too many people are very surface level with their discussions. They're not diving deeper and really understanding what you are getting yourself into with this individual, and if you two are really on the same page. All right, because some people just don't fit well. There are some people who waited, and when they finally did it, was like, this is trash. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it like that, but that's what they expressed to me. I'm actually repeating somebody that said that. And for some, they were able to improve it. For some, it never got better. But the common denominator with those that, from what I have seen, that it did not work out well, a lot of times that they did not do due diligence before then, despite, even though, because they didn't think, well, since we're not doing it, that we need to like really dive deep into discussing it and understanding each other's desires and likes and all these things. The only reason you wouldn't be able to have that talk is if you're both virgins or something. Then that's different, right? But outside of that, if you've had some experience, then you should at least have an idea of where you're at with things, how you feel about certain acts and things of that nature, and all of that needs to be discussed. Now, if you are engaging in it, the unfortunate reality is that there are tons of women who are sleeping with men who do not satisfy them. And though the world may have you want to believe that if the woman's not being satisfied, she's not going to stick around, that's lies. Sorry to say. There may be some of you who will leave immediately if you're not satisfied, but there are many more who will stick around if they find enough reason to hold on to this man in their head. Okay? And or even for them, it's not that big of a deal as long as they're getting their other needs met in other areas. Like, we're not going to get too deep into it, but there's some women out there who've told me straight up they don't really like sex like that, right? So for them, they're not really stressing over the quality of it, so to speak. Problem is, whether you like it, don't like it, whatever, the question that has to be asked is, can you show up in the way that the man will need for him to be satisfied? And is he prepared to show up in the way that you will need for you to be satisfied? So, for example, one woman expressed to me she didn't really care about the sex. However, she loved this man's affection. So she loved when he gives her massages and holds her and all these different things. So for her, it's like, if he keeps that up, I'm good, right? And I'm like, all right, well, that needs to be discussed. He needs to understand that's what he has to be pouring into you consistently for you to be satisfied, right? You cannot leave it up to the person to just, well, he should just know or just want to do. No, he needs to know that's what you're looking for, because he may not understand that the sex part really ain't that big of a deal. Now, granted, there might be some guys who don't like that conversation, right? But if the conversation is not had in a way to strengthen and secure you both being in tune with each other in that way, well, whether a lot of people want to admit it or not, this is another one of those things that leads to the deterioration of many relationships on both sides. I've seen it happen where the woman is completely unsatisfied and she can't take it no more, and that opens the doors to all kinds of other issues. I've seen it with the man. I've seen it from all different kinds of angles. And so some people want to like dismiss or devalue the importance and the priority of intimacy, of sex, but it's like you can't do that. And if you're gonna do that, you better be doing it with someone who shares that same sentiment. So it's like, yo, if there's a man and a woman who both view sex as it's not that serious, we can get it in when we get it in, but we're cool as long as the other stuff is there in the relationship. Perfect. That works for y'all. Knock yourselves out. But you can't have one who thinks like that and the other who's like, it's a high priority, I need it, and I need a high quality of it as well. That disconnect will show up in so many other ways. And again, sometimes it starts with the disconnect in the bedroom. Then let's say, for example, the woman's like, all right, well, this ain't really fun for me, so I'm not really trying to engage. So now once the man wants to make it happen, she got a headache, she tired, she got every excuse in the book. And initially he might be dealing with it, but then over time, he starts to get resentful, he gets frustrated. Now he starts having an attitude. His attitude makes her have an attitude now, and it just snowballs from there. And now you might have these two people fighting about this argument and these issues that they're having on the surface, but what it's really stemming from is their disconnect in the bedroom. So that has to be discussed, that has to be addressed. But if that is not in place and at a level that works for both sides, that's something that will lead to the failure of the relationship. All right. And so now a great question that must be asked when we're wondering if a relationship will fail or not is there a foundation of friendship? Okay. So I'm a firm believer that probably the best relationships have a foundation of friendship. Like I was trying to say, some maybe leave some exceptions, but no, I really feel like the best ones, the happiest ones, have a foundation of friendship. And what that really means is that these two people genuinely get along. These two people genuinely like each other. They like each other outside of the parameters of romantic relationship. And what that means is like, okay, there are some people who they enjoy sex together, they enjoy the image of the relationship, things like that. They enjoy having someone there. But outside of that, they don't really like each other, right? Like, would you be friends with this person if you weren't lovers with them? You know what I'm saying? Like, just based off of personality and things of that nature. And so I don't want you to think that I'm saying they need to be your only friend, right? Because I think having friends and family beyond your relationship is a good, healthy thing in a lot of cases, if not all. But it's just making sure that you two have that together. You two have that level of bond together. And of course, like I was going to mention later, but I'll mention it now. Not just friendship, but is there a real connection here? Like to me, any relationship that doesn't have real, deep, genuine connection isn't going to work in the long run. Plain and simple. The ones who last a lifetime. I remember meeting one guy who was actually driving an Uber, and much older man, and I think he was married. He was going into his 50th year of marriage, and he was telling me how like he knew she was the one from like day one, and they don't fight. They never had any major issues. They're like best friends, right? But he talked how they had this amazing connection from day one. It was just there. It was instant, and it's like that's what I've seen. That's in all my years of doing this and studying these things. What I've seen is that the ones who have deep, genuine connection, and who overcome the early obstacles, because some people do have some early obstacles when it comes to that due to things like lack of healing and all the other issues. But those couples, man, they're good forever. You know, you never want to say forever, but yeah, pretty much. Like they're just good. They always have that because they have that strong foundation. So that connection, that friendship is huge. It's important. And if it's not there, then you got to ask yourself why. Like, okay, is it because I'm holding something back? Is it because of fear? Is it because we just don't click like that? Because whatever that answer is will give more clarity to the fact of, is this a fixable issue, or this is just the reality that we're not really best for each other. All right, so here's a bonus that I want to give, or it's not a bonus, it was me saying I was going to discuss the earlier issue. And that is when I mentioned to you that some people aren't in love, it's just an unhealthy attachment. So the reality is that when trying to understand if your relationship is going to last or not, you have to start with asking yourself, am I here because I genuinely am in love with this person? Forget them for a second and whether they love you and all that. Because you only know yourself for sure, right? We can assume things with them, we can come to certain conclusions, we can take them at their word, but you know you and how you feel, and you have to get in tune with that. And the thing is, if love is not what's driving you, then chances are it's an unhealthy attachment. Unhealthy attachment to me is anything outside of love that is keeping you or causing you to want to be in that relationship, right? So it could be being afraid to be alone. It could be the fear of starting all over. It could be financial reasons. It could be feel like there's no better options out there for you. It could be wanting to shut up family and friends who keep asking you why you're single or why you ain't got no kids yet. Like, you know, it happens to a lot of you, happens to a lot of people. I can go on and on and on. There's a lot of different reasons why people are entering into or remaining in a relationship, and it's not really about truly being in love and into this person. But it's very easy for someone to convince themselves that this is love. And it's like, no, don't do that to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. You got to go deep within and see this for what it is. Because again, if it is not love, it's not going to last. It will only take you so far. And there's only so much self-convincing you can do, okay? Until this eventually blows up in your face. And this is why also, even in trying to choose someone, because someone might say, well, you know, they're being told, choose a man who loves them more than you love him. And I have videos on that. And I think that's horrible advice. Because if you can tell me that you know he loves you more, that means you're not in love with him. You're not truly into him. Because anyone who is in love and has to deal with their feelings is going to think I'm in love with them more. Like, because that's what you're experiencing, right? You won't be able to quantify that they love you more, whatever. You wouldn't be able to see it that way because you're so into them. If you can see it that way, it's because you're not into them. And if you're not into them, this will not last, because at some point, no matter how hard they're making efforts to want to be with you, no matter how much they're trying to shower you with love, and I put that in quotation marks, because for them, it's not really love either. It could be infatuation, could be a lot of different things. But no matter how much it seems that way initially, there will come a point, and I see this happen all the time, there will come a point where the smoke clears and they're not really getting from you what they need and desire, because you don't have that level of desire for them. You've accepted being with them. You don't really desire them like that. And now, because they're not receiving it, this is the beginning of the end. Now everything starts to fall apart. Now, that's why you'll hear situations where women get with that kind of man and that man still cheats. And I got to do a whole different discussion for that, whole different video. But the point is, a lot of it stems from y'all were not truly, genuinely into each other, genuinely in love, genuine connection. And that will pretty much always lead to that relationship failing. Hey, thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 7 things men need more than sex to fall deeply for you. Men want to feel secure in the sense of, all right, I don't have to worry about this woman just leaving me at the drop of a dime. I don't want to worry about this. If I have a moment of struggle,